I'm an architect who loves to draw. My name is Burkas. I'm in my studio in Santa Barbara, and we're going to look at a house that we designed and tell you how and why we designed the house the way it is. Clients came to us and they said, we want to build on the beach. We want to build in a place that has great ocean views. We want to build a house that allows us to bring our extended family home, but we want to have a place that's private for them also. So we looked at putting the living kitchen across the back to enjoy the view, the library to enjoy the view, a stairway that went upstairs so the master bedroom sat over the top of the kitchen area, and a guest room over the living room, and a bridge that connected that, and the guest over here, and actually another bridge that connected the guest to their own bedroom suites, which were over a motor court in the front. So as you start to, this becomes a house. It is a drawing that as you start to sketch, you draw a diagram, and the diagram becomes architecture. So what we were looking at, once again, was the ocean that ran along the area here. We're looking at, once again, winds that came from the west side over here, sun that came east and west. And we looked at the kitchen being on the morning side of the house. Always think about the kitchen enjoying east light. The sun is a wonderful thing to gain in the morning. In the afternoon, the warmth in the living room. And we looked at the house as around a courtyard, so that if the winds came, that we would end up being able to shelter the people around a fireplace in a courtyard that we came through from a motor court, which was the garages in front. So very simply then, this became a living room with a fireplace sitting in the floor, seating areas around the fireplace, the dining room in this area here, the kitchen that was back in this side of the house on the east side with sun coming in the morning, and the idea that the library on this edge of the house would enjoy the quiet, and we could block the west sun with that. But we're watching the beach, looking at the surf, looking at a pool that sits in the yard, and it became a place that water in an infinity pool poured over into the ocean visually, and then water in the front kept the acoustics that were from the noise of the road and the train away from the inners of the house. Enter here, look to light, look to the right, the library, a piano, look to the left, to the dining room, towards the kitchen, views up and down the coast. But all houses that we work on become diagrams that are bubbles, then start to become harder lines, and the forms start to come together. And it's an exercise in thinking with the hand and the mind that will go from just a little bit more detail than this to the computer, where it really becomes an organized piece put together by the designers that are working with me on the house. So it all begins as a pattern and a diagram. The idea of where things are and how they interrelate, adjacencies and the opportunities of the sun in the afternoon, the sun in the morning, the views to the water, and the idea that the bridge puts together the guest and the master, looking down into the wonderful views of the house. The people that have this house are wonderful clients, and it's a house that we are very, very proud of as architects. And that, I think, is the greatest reward an architect can have, is a happy client, a great building, and a place that they want to go back and visit because of the meaning of the piece that they've designed and the strength of the architecture. I'd like to talk about a house that we designed several years ago overlooking the coast in Santa Barbara, and what the constraints were, the problems, and what the opportunities were, and how our client really interfaced with us in a great way. What they told us was that they're on the top of the hill. They have great views of the ocean. The hill is here. The sun in the morning coming up out of the east was fabulous to warm the bedroom. They wanted to be able to have that same sun into the kitchen. And then we had great views out to the west at the harbor at night with the lights. But also we have tremendous winds coming in from the west. So the idea was to create a house that would give us bookends, a living room, a bedroom, a kitchen, and a family room, a place to gather that would take the east sun, but then would be on the opposite side of the evening sun. So you had architecture that gave you a place that was much different in the afternoon than it was in the morning. So as the floor plan began to develop, what we did was we said, Okay, let's look at the master bedroom as a leaf. Because at the top of the hill with the wind blowing, the leaf really became something that talked to movement. And the family room and the kitchen, then being in the center, family room, bedroom, and then the dining room here and a courtyard, and then a living room, and then the guest quarters on one side. And then if we came over here and we used the back of the house, we have a courtyard. The entrance to the house then looks through the glass to the view and at the ocean, which is on the side here. So with the wind moving across the site at all times and with a great view of the ocean, we begin to have a house that respects its site, respects the attitude of the sun and the environment that surrounds it, and becomes a building that with care becomes a lighthouse on the hill with leaves that become the end forms of the building. So lighthouses begin to separate the two shapes that are the living room and the master bedroom. And as we look at the shapes of the building then, looking at the coast, the lighthouses stand in the center, telling you that it's at the beach, it's on the coast. The leaves on the edge become these organic forms that come to the ground and that give us a house that really talk about movement of the people within, movement of the winds on the site, and the excitement of living someplace where every day is a different day because of the environment that surrounds the site. The blue indicates the ocean. The blue in this case indicates the glass and lets us know that the house is transparent and the people within the house are going to enjoy sight, ocean, architecture with simple forms that talk to the movement of the winds and of the environment. This is a house that we're very proud of, and it has stood time wonderfully with great clients that from Europe come here, enjoy this house as a refuge and vacation. I love the fact that I can make places better and make people happier. I think that's what we do as we design, is really look through the lens of life and try to make a place better. So somebody came to me this morning with this house that we're looking at, and I want to talk about the things that work and don't work. This is the entry here, and this is a wall, and this is a living room on this side, and this is a dining room on this side. The house is fractured by the kitchen that sits in the middle. This house then has this zone and this zone. And when you enter the house, you look at a wall, yet there's great views and vistas into gardens out here. Weren't taken advantage of. Now why then is it bad? Well, here are the opportunities that come from a house that exists very simply by being able to take the kitchen, move it into a place like this, create a series of islands, and open the house all the way to here. Leave the entry where it is. Be able to look through to light. This is glass that opens to a garden. Put the dining room in here so people can talk, because one of the most important things in the world is a dining room table. That's where the family gathers. That's where information is passed. That's where people get to know each other. The sitting here around the fireplace is a wonderful thing, and it's open all the way to the kitchen. But today we want to make sure that the person that's in the kitchen is part of the social activity of house. So one lesson that I like to talk about a lot is when you open the front door, view light, be asked to come into the house as a guest. Don't be stopped by a wall and be asked to be interviewed before you become part of the chamber, the environment. So open the doors to light, open the doors to a large living space, be able to take a simple move like this and take the kitchen and put it to the side and create a living environment which is socially going to be a very active place with great views, and ask the people that come to the house to join the family. And I'm going to show you how a simple piece of paper can become a building. That the organic shapes that we see in nature can be made by hand also. By taking a simple piece of paper like that and crumbling it and creating a building. If you create that building, much like what Frank Gehry's done, you can take that and then translate that to drawing. If you translate it to drawing, you can end up with a piece of architecture that can become quite interesting. That's the way architects get ideas. They get ideas from looking at nature. They get ideas from looking at form and paper. They may be as simple as crunching a piece of paper and creating an organic shape, much like origami. To take that piece and then it becomes an idea that begins to germinate as you put the glass in the building and fill the voids and start looking at the roof forms and making them the solid shapes in the building form. You can look at that, and the one thing that's wonderful about paper and drawing is that paper has a memory, and so do you. And if you overlay that, you can start to perfect it. And by perfecting it, you may find that shape really wants to do this. And if you're doing that with this shape, you can begin to make a building that is different from your first drawing. And the wonderful thing about this versus the computer is you can always look back to see where you were. And you can see these shapes begin to become organic in their form, a building that will become something that public will enjoy and you as an architect will enjoy making. So always look back, look through your drawings, keep on building upon the thought. That's what your hand and paper allow you to do versus the computer. I'm an architect who loves what I do. My name is Barry Burkas, and I'm sitting in the studio in Santa Barbara after enjoying a walk to the office this morning, looking at nature. I stopped in our garden and found this wonderful succulent, a succulent that looked like a village and something that I could make into a building. And many times as I walk or ride my bike, I look at the nature around me and think about what can I do with that to make something beautiful for people to enjoy. I wrote a book once called Walking with the Eye, Architects, Artists, Parallels and Connections, the ability to really make things from what we see. So I took this and I said, what happens if this becomes a series of cups that support people, that becomes a vertical village that we can live in? What kind of building would that really be? And I looked at the stem and said, if this became places where people could start building, where people could live on each one of these levels, it becomes the same thing that I'm looking at in the plant. And it is a village, but it's an organic village, and it's a place where people would enjoy living with nature. And the color of this plant is also something that was capturing me as I watched it and looked at it in the garden. It's going to go back to the garden. Being a succulent, it can be replaced and replanted. But it is a form that, in my mind, is something that would be wonderful to live in. And that's part of being an architect, continuing to exercise the mind and look at places to live and places to work and places that would become wonderful pieces of architecture based on what we see as we walk in the nature of place. The hand continues to move the idea to paper, continues to make something that is wonderful, because in a computer, you can't overlay. You can't look at what you did in the past and see how it developed to something that might be better, or you might even throw the underlay away. But it's something that architects always should look at. Look at the past, look what you've done, see how it starts developing into new ideas, see how the shadow forms start working in the shape and making the elements really become powerful pieces of architecture.